Good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, depending on the place from where you are following this webinar, this new webinar, which is devoted to the title, Justice for Tai Ji Men is Justice for All. Today, 20th of February, is World Day of Social Justice. It is in 2007 that the United Nations General Assembly decided to observe this day annually with the purpose to remind us of the need to build fairer and more equitable societies. Injustice has a very dangerous ripple effect that must be combated right from the beginning. Imagine society as a pond disturbed by a pebble thrown into its still waters. The ripples created by this disturbance represent the far-reaching consequences of injustice. When a group is denied basic rights or faces discrimination, the impact extends beyond the immediate targets. A ripple effect ensues, affecting neighboring communities and eventually damaging the entire social landscape. Grave injustices go on persisting everywhere around the world, including in democracies. Even if it is to a lesser extent than in totalitarian, dictatorial, or autocratic regimes, it should never be underestimated or disregarded. That's the reason why social justice is increasingly put at the center of international, national, and regional policy agendas. Social stability and harmony largely depends on social justice. Under the colonial rule of Japan, the Taiwanese were constantly victims of injustices. After the shadows of the Second World War and the defeat of Japan, the local Taiwanese society was soon plunged into another very long period of appalling injustice. Soon riled by rampant corruption in the government, the people of Taiwan condemned the Chinese nationalist government's takeover of Taiwan as plundering Taiwan. This injustice led to the eruption of the well-known but fateful 228 incident of 28 February 1947 and 4 decades of white terror. Thousands of people were imprisoned, tortured, killed during about 40 years because they wanted democracy, rule of law, and justice. When democracy was finally allowed to slowly emerge, the quest for transitional justice was declared a priority. But an end could not immediately be put to bad behaviors in the state apparatus, and injustice persisted. Tai Ji Men was a victim of state injustice because of its political neutrality. In April 1997, Dr. Hong Tao-tse, the founder of the Tai Ji Men Qigong Academy, was indicted by prosecutor Hu Guanjian for alleged tax evasion. He was arrested with his wife and a few dizzy. They all spent several months in prison, an egregious injustice. Under the White Terror, they would have disappeared in the opaque prison system of that time. I mean that they would have been killed during their detention. Thanks to the blood shed by the victims of 40 years of White Terror and the sacrifice of their lives for the sake of social justice, Dr. Hong, his wife, and the dizzy did not die in prison, but were finally released and fought in courts for justice. It took them 10 years to be recognized as innocent of tax fraud and to be acquitted of all the charges by the Supreme Court in July 2007. The fight for social justice during 40 years of dictatorship progressively led to social justice for all and partly for Tai Ji Men. The fight of Tai Ji Men for social justice in their own case is indeed not finished, despite the decision of the Supreme Court. The National Tax Bureau goes on prosecuting them for allegedly not paying a tax which was declared illegal 17 years ago by the highest court of the country. And the Tax Bureau even confiscated part of their properties in August 2020. Dr. Hong has understood for a long time that fighting for social justice and for one's own rights is also fighting for social justice for all, now and for the future generations, as it had been the case for himself and Tai Ji Men. When the fight against social injustice by the National Tax Bureau against Tai Ji Men comes to an end with a victory, it will be acknowledged that Tai Ji Men and the dizzy will have paid a high price for it, but they will have built a jurisprudence from which the current and future generations of Taiwanese taxpayers will be the heirs and beneficiaries of it. Coming back to my early comparison with the ripple effect of injustice, my conclusion is that the fight for justice is a collective responsibility, as the well-being of one group is intrinsically tied to the well-being of all. This is beneficial to every citizen and for the state, as social justice contributes to keeping quiet the waters of society peaceful and harmonious. This is the mission of Tai Ji Men and the dizzy today and tomorrow. And now we will watch a video, a speech by Dr. Hong Tao-tse.
Distinguished guests, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, good day. In order to achieve social development that benefits everyone under globalization, it is necessary for countries to collaboratively formulate an action framework to promote national, regional, and international justice. The goal is to establish a society that serves everyone, ensuring equal opportunities for all and shared equality and fairness in aspects of the right to life, right to education, and right to employment. This action is of paramount importance as it represents the core values of global social development. In November 2007, the United Nations General Assembly declared February 20th as World Day of Social Justice. The aim is to raise awareness about issues of social inequality, promote international harmony and fairness, and address various challenges such as poverty, illiteracy, diseases, and inequality. This significant International Day serves as a reminder for people worldwide to collectively focus on the multifaceted aspects of imbalanced development. Through discussions on implementing social justice, it seeks to establish a fair and inclusive social order, fostering dialogue and enhancing global unity to facilitate prosperous development in every area of the world. The ongoing repercussions of the COVID-19 pandemic, the lingering effects of financial crisis, and the rapid development of artificial intelligence may evolve into a global employment crisis, posing threats to security and peace. Long-term poverty, worsening income inequality, unstable employment, and deteriorating living conditions almost extinguish all opportunities for the most vulnerable and impoverished populations. Billions of people around the world are living in poverty and isolation. Only when world citizens work together for inclusiveness and respect for human rights will we be able to achieve social development, diversity integration, and social justice, which in turn contribute to building a peaceful and secure world. Faced with complex and challenging circumstances, it is crucial to implement concrete, coordinated strategies at the global, regional, and national levels to address the ever-changing environment and urgent challenges. Achieving of social justice requires the self-discipline of individuals and the intervention of collective forces, the collaboration and contributions between government and private sector will be able to enhance the efficiency of social and economic operations, reduce poverty, inequality, and social conflicts, and achieve a more inclusive and sustainable socio-economic development. Achieving social justice requires dialogue in action. When individuals feel they are treated fairly and have equal opportunities, they are more willing to engage in social affairs, care for marginalized groups, pay attention to social injustices, and actively participate in actions to achieve improvements. Conscience plays a crucial role in the process of achieving a sustainable future. It is the inner sense of right and wrong, guiding individuals to make ethical judgments and take responsibility for their actions. Conscience reminds people to minimize inherent selfish desires in their actions and to act in accordance with principles of justice and morality. Conscience, social justice, and sustainability complement each other, representing a responsibility to both the present and future generations. Promoting a fair and competitive economic environment and safeguarding the rights and opportunities of vulnerable groups, which will contribute to the equitable distribution of social resources and the economic development. Guided by conscience, we will take proactive actions to promote sustainable development through continuous dialogue and adjustment. we can foster the ongoing development and progress of human society, ensuring a better, more equal, and just world for future generations. Love fosters mutual care, support, and inclusiveness among people, while peace is the status shaped by justice and fairness in a stable and harmonious society. These three elements together create a virtuous cycle in an environment of love and peace where everyone is respected and supported. Society can achieve true justice and fairness. The enduring peace and stability of the world are built upon the foundation of sustainable development and social justice. World Day of Social Justice provides an opportunity for people to reflect and examine their actions through dialogue among countries, civil organizations, and individuals. It aims to acknowledge the importance of social justice, enhance awareness and activism regarding social justice, and encourage concrete actions in various fields to strive for social justice. In doing so, we will be able to forge a better future for families, communities, and societies. May all of us, the world citizens, promote world peace with love and conscience. Take action to implement social justice. Thank you all.
And thank you, Dr. Hank, for sharing with us your inspiring reflections and comments about this day devoted to social justice. And we will now listen to the first speaker, who is Marco Respinti, director in charge of Bitter Winter magazine. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I will tell you a story. One day in ancient Egypt, during the reign of Pharaoh Nebkau Kheti of the 10th dynasty, who ruled between 2160 and 2130 before the Common Era, the poor peasant Kunanuk crossed the lands of the high steward Renzi to reach the market and procure sustenance for his family. Nenkianat, an evident corrupt vassal of Renzi, saw Kunanuk and plotted to steal his donkeys and supplies. On a narrow road bordered by a river on one side and his own private fields on the other, Nenkianat placed a cloth, forcing the peasant to step either on his property or into the water. While Kunanuk pondered, one of his donkeys ate from Nenkianat's fields, and the evil vassal felt authorized to claim the peasant's donkeys and supplies as his own. All the protests of Kunanuk were useless, and gained him only corporal punishment and threats of death. The peasant managed then to appeal to Renzi. Judges didn't care about what for them was only a petty controversy, but Renzi took his case up to the pharaoh. The king god of Egypt was convinced to listen to the peasant by his sublime oratory, commanding Renzi to keep Kunanuk in the royal court and delay his case in order to continue enjoying the peasant's refined speeches. But after 9 days, the peasant was desperate. He then gave a last speech and left. Impressed by his farewell words, Renzi called him back and finally paid him justice. Not only Kunanuk reobtained his donkeys and supplies, but got all the properties of the vicious Nenkianat. Thus, the good Kunanuk became a wealthy man, and the evil Nenkianat ended his days in misery. This popular tale is considered the most ancient statement of what came to be known as the Golden Rule. It is one of the fascinating elements that makes us really think in a warm and poetic way that human beings come all from the same stock and origin. Golden Rule is a common patrimony of so many different cultures scattered all over the world without exchange, or communication. The formulation by which we now know and use it is contained in the Gospel according to Luke. I quote, "Whatsoever you would that men should do to you, do you even so to them." End of quote. This is from the King James Version that English-speaking Christians have quoted for centuries. The Gospel according to Matthew phrases it almost identically. No matter how much and often it is betrayed and violated, the Golden Rule remains a moral standard theoretically valid for all human beings, be they religious or not. It is interesting, though, to note that, although many or even most forgot its source, it comes from the Bible, a religious text revered by the millions who are part of Christianity, the largest religion in the world today. The expression Golden Rule itself was coined in 1604 by British Anglican theologian Charles Gibbon and Thomas Jackson. This rule is defined as made of gold because it grants, if observed and implemented, true justice, hence unlimited peace. The Gospel according to Matthew defines it, the law. Its secret is quite simple. No one of us wants to suffer evil. If others are expected to do to us what we do to them, to suffer no evil, it is then enough to avoid doing evil. It is so simple in theory that it is difficult in practice. Probably this is why an elementary principle like this needs a divine book to be taught time and again. In fact, the difficulty arises from the fact that human beings are not only made of clear theories, but also of different practices, coming not only from the spirit, but also from the flesh. They are not pure spirits, but a mysterious union of soul and flesh. And as the Gospel according to Matthew underlines, quote, "The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak," end of quote. This weakness accounts for the constant violation of the Golden Rule by human beings who, while seeing all the evils coming to them from their wrongdoings, are nonetheless incapable of refraining from imposing them on others. Of course, it is a self-harming attitude, but such is the nature of evil. The Golden Rule has another formulation in the Gospel according to John. Let me quote, "I give you a new commandment, love one another. As I have loved you, so you also should love one another. This is how all will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." End of quote. It is Jesus who speaks to his disciples, and in comparison to previous version, this way of phrasing the Golden Rule puts its accent on the positive. It underlines not only the evil that human beings should not do, but also the good that they are called to perform. It is a decisive and strategic approach. It is true that men and women should avoid doing evil to avoid suffering evil, but it is much more thrilling and exciting to do good because of the sublime nature of good itself. So the Golden Rule becomes doing good to others as you would have others do good to you, good being gratifying in itself. Take now Tai Ji Men. It suffered and suffers much evil by corrupt bureaucrats that, similarly to each of us, were not able to resist the temptation of doing evil to others. From the Gospel, but also from a range of different cultures dating back to Egypt of the first intermediate period, we all know that this will bring evil to those corrupt bureaucrats as well. If not by humans, they will be punished by divine judges. What is important is that in the face of all this, Tai Ji Men did not repay evil with evil. Convinced of the inner strength of the Golden Rule, Tai Ji Men never stopped contributing to the common good of people and society. Why did he do it? Because Tai Ji Men Shifu or Grandmaster and Dizzy or disciples do good to others as they would have others do good to them profoundly, knowing how good and love are self-rewarding. This is the way Tai Chi Men understands social justice and the way it observes this World Day of Social Justice. Tai Chi Men, in fact, knows that by tirelessly operating good and promoting love, good and love eventually will come to them and to all, changing the hearts and the minds. This is the task of Tai Chi Men. Our task is to appeal to those who did and do evil to Tai Chi Men so that they stop. They should also understand the golden rule and avoid doing to others what others can one day do to them.
Thank you. Thank you, Marco. And for starting with a tale is always a good reference to draw lessons for our lives. You know, you in fact you are doing as the famous French writer La Fontaine, the fables of La Fontaine, that we as students when we were young were learning, because each of them contained a lesson, and the tale you started with also contained a lesson. And thank you for making the parallel with Tai Ji Men on this occasion. And now I will give the floor to Hans Noot from the Netherlands, the president of the Gerhard Noot Foundation for Freedom of Religion or Belief. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Willie. As it is February 20th today, we again focus on the annually repeating World Day of Social Justice. It is a United Nations initiative, as you mentioned, to raise awareness for social justice issues regarding inequality, poverty, and social exclusion globally. In the complexity of our global society, the call for an unwavering focus on social justice resonates louder than ever. Increasingly, it seems there is a need to address the systematic inequalities, promote inclusivity, and ensure the equitable distribution of resources and recognition of all human rights, and it has become paramount. A steadfast commitment to social justice is key to fostering a harmonious and sustainable world. Social justice embodies fairness, equality, and the protection of fundamental human rights for all individuals, irrespective of their background, identity, or social economic status. The contemporary landscape is marked by persistent disparities in access to education, healthcare, economic and opportunities, and justice. Education stands as a cornerstone in societal progress. Yet around the world, millions face barriers that limit their access to quality education. Social justice demands an end to these disparities, ensuring that every individual, regardless of their social economic background, has the opportunity to acquire knowledge, skills, and train their intelligence. Globally, much can be gained from assuring education for all. Economic inequality is another pressing issue. The concentration of wealth in the hands of a few exacerbates inequalities, hindering social mobility and perpetuating cycles of poverty. A commitment to social justice involves the creation of policies that promote inclusive economic growth and equitable distribution of resources and wages. The objective is a society where prosperity is shared by all. Systemic discrimination and promoting diversity and inclusion are equally relevant. Discrimination based on race, gender, ethnicity, religion, or other irrelevant factors undermine the principles of equality and justice. By dismantling or discriminatory structures and fostering environments that celebrate diversity, societies can move towards a more equitable and just future. The criminal system, too, is not exempt from the imperative for reform. It would demand a legal framework that is fair, transparent, and free from bias. Criminal justice reform includes addressing issues such as mass incarceration, unequal sentencing, and the over-policing of marginalized communities. A fair criminal justice system is a tall order, as can be seen throughout the world's nations. A focus on social justice compels societies to confront these challenges and strive for a legal system that truly serves justice for all. Increasingly, the world's challenges are interconnected. Social justice calls for solidarity in addressing issues that disproportionately affect vulnerable communities, whether through climate-induced displacement or uneven access to healthcare resources. And yet, whilst much need to be tackled from a global perspective, we must not lose sight of national sovereignty and the values of democracy, law, and order. The answer to this conundrum is discussion and collaboration, and not world domination. Social justice is first and foremost part of an interalienable right that individuals have, which are so well described by the diverse traditions and characters regarding human rights, such as in olden times, the Roman natural law, later the England Bill of Rights in 1689, the United States Bill of Rights, the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights of 1948, the European Convention of Human Rights in 1950, the American Convention of Human Rights in 1969, and more, and I applaud such initiatives. Social justice has its roots as a moral imperative. It assumes the responsible role of treating all humans with dignity that humans deserve. At the same time, human rights are necessary for the preservation of the species. By recognizing, safeguarding, and even celebrating it, humans can remain at their rightful place in the animal kingdom, with the responsibility to protect the planet we inhabit. The promotion of social justice goes beyond the realms of good governance, creating fair laws and an independent and effective judicial system. It needs to be shaped by individuals and organizations dedicated to instilling values of equality, well-being, and social inclusion for all of us. Schools, religions, NGOs, and families play pivotal roles in fostering it. These institutions do not merely aim to impart academic subjects, such as arithmetic and reading, writing, theology, and ethics. Rather, they aspire to enrich society by upholding the fundamental standards. Dr. Hong Tao Tse and his entities, including the Federation of World Peace and Love and his academies, serve as models of how endeavors contribute to the realization of social justice. Despite having been the subject of severe social injustice himself, Dr. Hong puts into practice his teachings regarding conscience and love, as he expressed just before. Examples of such integrity have great influence on society, more than anything else. In summary, the World Day of Social Justice emphasizes the contemporary need for an unwavering focus on social justice in the 21st century, addressing systemic inequalities in education, healthcare, economic opportunities, and justice. We need to bridge educational gaps, combat economic inequality, and dismantle discriminatory structures. I advocate for criminal justice reform, Social justice is rooted in inalienable rights and moral imperatives, with an emphasis to care for the planet. Prioritizing fairness, equality, and human rights for building resilient and inclusive societies is a strategic importance. The role of institutions such as schools, religions, NGOs, and families in fostering social justice aid in realizing social justice. Thank you for your attention.
And thank you, Hans Noth, for this wide-ranging presentation, during which, in particular, you reminded us of those initiatives that were taken first by the UK, by the United States. You didn't mention France, but I will, and the European Union in the recent decades to promote in their own way, but through the legal channels, social justice. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us. And we're now very close to the second session, the usual second session of this webinar, the session during which the DISI will share their thoughts with us. But I first will give the floor to Alessandro Amicarelli, President of the European Federation for Freedom of Religion or Belief in the UK. The floor is yours, Alessandro.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much, Willie. It was a very interesting first part of the seminar today with different aspects being developed and commented on by the speakers. We start the second part with a video first about protesters against tax bonuses in Taipei. And then we have the DISIs with their testimonies. So we can start with the video, please.
This is Monk's famous artwork, The Scream. But have you ever thought about this could be people screaming out their pains of being persecuted by the tax authorities? Wearing masks with a screaming face on it, tens of thousands of people in Taiwan take to the street to shout out loud their sufferings and dissatisfaction of the broken tax system. Today, the Tax and Legal Reform League and 10+ organizations gather in front of Taiwan's presidential office to call on all Taiwanese citizens to fight for taxpayers' rights.
We want to request the government to face the problem that we are facing with right now in Taiwan. So especially today, we keep mentioning about the bonus. So what is the bonus? So many experts to mention that the bonus is the resource or the loopholes from the chaos about the tax bureau, and also a lot of the bullying behavior in Taiwan. So what we learned is that if you have the bonus, some people, everyone like the money, but the government, what they are doing, the major responsibility for them is to protect the people. But if that's the bonus, if they want to get money, maybe they will issue the wrong tax bill.
The organizers emphasize the 5 no's: no illegal tax bills, no threatened taxpayers to pay unreasonable tax, no illegal tax bonuses, no illegal execution bonuses, and no bonuses for malicious reporting tax evasion. They also accuse the government of imposing 400 billion NT dollars excessive tax revenue, which hit a new high in history. Overdue taxes and other charges in 2020 have increased to 1,431 cases, which is 7.5 times more than that of in 2001. Many experts suspect that the soaring number is caused by the tax bonuses. Tai Ji Men case is one of the fabricated tax cases in Taiwan, which has drawn international attention. Some human rights activists brought this case to the United Nations Commission on Human Rights and condemned the Taiwan government for tax persecution. Dr. Massimo Intravina urged the Taiwan government to correct mistakes at a press conference in Washington, D.C.
Well, the answer is precisely because it's not primarily, and certainly it's not exclusively a tax case. It's a case of human rights. it is established a recognized principle that it is the right and the duty of the international community to protect human rights. And it's needed that the international community takes an interest, as it is doing, and takes a stand in the violation of the Tai Ji Men human rights in Taiwan.
Tai Ji Men is a landmark case where human rights and religious freedoms of Tai Ji Men's Shifu and Dizi have been seriously violated. It is also a violation of Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the two international covenants. And it also have undermined and lowered the standards of human rights protection in democratic countries. As many scholars point out, Tai Ji Men case is not the tax issue, it's not the domestic issue, it's actually a human rights violations case based on religious freedom. That's why we bring this case to Washington, D.C. We seek the international community's help because we hope that the governments will rectify this case and to return the justice and to return Tai Ji Men's sacred lands. And we have persisted for 25 years. We will continue to fight for justice until the hope and justice are restored.
This case shows that taxpayers' rights and freedom of belief in Taiwan have been neglected. The protesters call on the government to abolish tax incentives and injustice and protect human rights so that the positive image of Taiwan as a democracy can be maintained. Ella Lee Quintanu, Taiwan.
Okay, we can now move with the testimonies, the second part of the seminar, of webinar. Before doing so, I want to recall that 477 years ago, on the 20th of February, 1547, Edward VI, son of Henry VIII, was crowned King of England. Why am I recalling this? Not only because it happened on the 20th of February, but because when he became king, when he was crowned as king, he was only 9 years old. Like most of the theses today in this webinar, most of the theses are primary school or in the high school. So I wanted to recall this this fact from the old past. So we start with the first D's, Miss Violet Pu, who is in fact a member of Tai Ji Men and a senior high school student. Please, Violet, the floor is yours.
Hello everyone. I'm Violet, a freshman in high school. And today I'm honored to participate in an online forum for World Social Justice Day. And I'd like to share my connection with fairness and justice. This connection has been established since I was born. Even before I can remember, my family would put my scholar and join the protests for the Tai Ji Men case. And throughout elementary and junior high school, the tradition continued. And in addition to participating in practice, I distribute flyers on the street and take part in forum at the Sun Yat-sen Memory Hall, contributing my efforts to advocate for tax reform in Taiwan. At that time, I was unwaveringly committed to the path of tax reform. However, as time passed, doubts began to grow in my mind. Having enjoyed a carefree childhood with minimal exposure to unfair treatment, I started questioning my position and significance in the tax reform movement. In the 1219 incident, a prominent example of tax persecution, I found myself on the side of the victim, standing on the street to protect the injustice inflicted upon my martial arts menpai, advocating for social justice. Yet, looking at it from the perspective of a high school student, throughout these years of my life, I have been striving for fairness and justice. However, the question remains, why? At that time, I still couldn't find an answer. Feeling lost, I decided to give myself some time for reflection. Consequently, I gradually withdrew from participating in activities related to tax reform, reducing my involvement in distributing flyers and other related tasks. During this period, like any student, I immerse myself in the simple moments of studying, taking exam, and enjoy lecture activities. This time allowed me to settle my mind, and issues of fairness and justice gradually faded from my world. Until the 12/19 protest last winter, I found myself back on Kaitagulan Boulevard. This time, I wasn't with my family, but with few senior martial sisters of the same age. The two high school students sat together on the street, participating in a tax reform protest and expressing our protest against the government's injustice. However, I didn't have a foreign goal in mind. As the cold wind blew, adjusting my hat repeatedly, I felt an urgent need to understand the meaning of persisting in this place and the reasons for sustaining this for 28 years. My mind raced, and eventually I find an answer. The pursuit of social justice is a long journey, and everything we have now comes from turning ideals into reality over time. The Tai Ji Men case is an unbelievable injustice. After going through all the legal and administrative remedies available, if a resolution still can't be obtained, and what else could we do? Often, one event can highlight the faults in society, and true justice can only be served by addressing the larger social issue. Fortunately, Professor Chen Zhilong from NTU and others, along with individuals passionate about public welfare, have jointly initiated the Tax Reform Alliance. They are exposing Taiwan's tax system issues to the public. They are hitting the street with pamphlets, inviting community members, village leaders, and representatives to sign tax reform declarations, gradually using grassroots power to change Taiwan. But what happens if we don't do this? I now realize it's just a way of indirectly delaying Taiwan's progress towards democracy. Ignorance of problems is the worst solution. But the reform start from a painful folk case like Tai Ji Men, it marks the beginning of addressing Taiwan's deeply rooted issues in tax law. Using the Tai Ji Men case to drive tax reform has several advantages. Firstly, this case highlights various problems and factual evidence within the national system. Tai Ji Men has been clean from tax issues since the beginning, with 3 criminal court rulings clearing our name, when 80 times in administrative court appeals against the Ministry of Finance, and the Control Young active investigation revealing even seven illegalities by the tax bureau. However, the legal tax bills still can be revoked. Secondly, Tai Ji Men has a large number of deeds who are united, and they have a broad vision. Thirdly, the research and alliance from hundreds of tax law experts provides strong democracy and legal support for tax reform movement built on a foundation of democracy, rule of law, and human rights. The movement steadily advanced, leaving no pause in the progress over the year. And looking back at myself, as I'm grown older, the world I face is no longer simple. My parents, who used to shout me with their arms, can no longer cover the ears of a young person who, in their teens, grabs a part of harsh reality. Watching classmates go with a social currents of right and wrong, unclear as they may be, I feel more empty, more uneasy. Whenever I can with my family to Tai Ji Men Academy to practice Qigong, upon entering the training room, I can feel the bright energy as in a dream. The Tai Ji mark on the back of the clothing seems to possess a strong energy that deeply captivated me. Finally, I realized that I've been waiting for this day, the day I found redemption. The brothers and sisters naturally radiated joyful smiles, filling an entire space with a delightful atmosphere. This happened to be the day of holding a tradition ceremony known as Tianguan Blessing Ceremony, where each other and sister resemble vibrant flowers, brilliantly blowing before my eyes. Why are they so joyless and carefree? Thinking and trying to figure it out with my mind, yet no answers. Slowly, the atmosphere of joy surrounded me, and I unexpectedly felt an unprecedented sense of injustice. I yearned to laugh freely, but in the relentless pace of my life, I have forgotten how to. After exchanging New Year blessing, the emotions in the room escalate. In the pure lights, the bright smells, I also wish to share in the joy to receive the blessing filling the entire room. I need to quickly welcome myself. That pure smell, once overshadowed by the dark clouds of unfair tax issues, has weathering years of blood, tears, and hardship. Fortunately, over these many years, for those of us who were once lost and confused, we find guidance from our master and encouragement from our senior martial arts siblings. They help us regain our strength, reminding us to stay on the right path and stand united to protect Tai Ji Men. My Shifu like a shining lamp, illuminating every deed and all people without a moment's rest. Dedicated to holding the right path, self-convention, and benefiting others. I would always remember my Shifu saying, justice is the heart of the people, and Tai Ji Men deeds have nothing to be ashamed of. I believe that in the future, we will firmly adhere to the principle of Tai Chi, that is yin yang, and that people towards brightness and sustainability. And thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Violet, also for your passion and for all the questions you were asking, you were wondering about, you were asking yourself, which is a sign of research. And it's something very important that everyone should be doing. And I'm sure that other people will be following the same way as you, looking for inspiration and for doing good in life in general and for your community, for Tai Ji Men. Thank you very much again for your testimony, for your presentation today. We can now move on to the next testimony with another Daisy. We have a very young Rapunzel Lu, that is an elementary school student and a Tai Ji Men. Please, Rapunzel. I saw you smiling. Rapunzel, yeah.
Hello everyone, I am Rapunzel, I am 10 years old. Today, I joined the online forum for the United Nations World Day of Social Justice. I'm very happy I can be here today because I've been brave. This is what I've learned in Tai Ji Men. My Shifu wanted us to learn how to speak, and I encouraged myself to make a breakthrough. That's why I became the speaker today. I think bravery and the ability to make breakthrough have a lot to do with justice. This is because if we are bullied or treated unfairly at school, we must be brave enough to speak up so that others will stop bullying us. But if they don't stop, we have to think of ways to break through, such as asking the teachers for help. If the teacher cannot stop the bullying, we have to turn to the school office. If the school office still cannot stop the bullying, we have to contact the registrar's office. If the issue keeps going, there is still a complaint mailbox that can help us. Why do I need to push myself? In TJM, my Shifu teaches us to use wisdom to handle conflicts. It's not okay to just let bullying slide. Instead, it's about having the courage to protect ourselves and finding the right way to solve problems without resorting to violence. That's what my Shifu teaches us, to do the right thing, practice love, and live by the principles of peace in our daily lives. I witnessed the most effective way to break through when my mentor faced bullying by those in power. He would actively use every available means to demonstrate to those officials abusing their power illegally that they were wrong, urging them to step back. Like, even though it's tough for the NBT to admit their mistakes, I've heard from senior martial arts siblings that they acknowledge TJM not being a cram school anymore. However, the incorrect tax bills haven't been revoked yet. Hopefully, they'll fix the mistake soon. When my Shifu, along with brothers and sister, were mistreated by the government, and many others suffered, the government didn't tell people to defend themselves. Instead, my Shifu used the TJM 1219 case to teach the legal tax officials to make changes. We need to protect the taxpayers and make sure tax officials understand they shouldn't do anything against their conscience. One year, we were advocating for legal tax reform on Catagrande Boulevard in front of the presidential palace. I saw Professor Sang Yuan, who bravely went on stage to share that a dehumidifier caught fire in his home, burned down the whole house, and injured his wife one night. The manufacturer compensated them with $1 million, but the NTB insisted it was their income for that year. The NTB aggressively issued a $200,000 back tax bill, but only after they spoke up, wrote a petition to the media. Did the NTB dismiss the illegal tax bill? In Taiwan, there are many cases of tax bullying, which is a form of social injustice. I believe we should unite to protect our rights, so I'll discuss with my mom and dad on Catagrande Boulevard to encourage people to fight against this kind of social injustice alone. If we come together, we won't be afraid. Moreover, if one person is bullied by the government, others are likely to face similar treatment. As I heard a Hong Kong human rights lawyer say on Catagrande Boulevard, injustice to one person is injustice to all. I also accompanied my grandma to meet the mayor and invited them to sign the tax reform manifesto. Every time, I felt happy, and sometimes the mayor would even treat me to sweets. Since childhood, I've known that some people in our society are treated unfairly by the government. For instance, I was upset when the government tried to take away the land in Miaoli that my shifu and my mom had purchased for their disciples to use for practicing Qigong. To protest, I went to the entrance of the executive office every day, handing out flyers to passers-by and police officers to inform them that the government should not bully the people. In addition, my grandma always encourages me to participate in TJM cultural exhibitions, so I have many opportunities to break through and learn a lot of TJM Qigong in practice. A teacher asked me what I had learned from TJM. I told her what I acquired from TJM is the idea of conscience. She was surprised that I had such an experience at such a young age, but I thought it was very common because Shifu had led us to promote the Age of Conscience movement. My performance started from the practice of the drums, and I had the sense that as soon as I struck the drumsticks, our positive thoughts radiated, awakening everyone's conscience. This year, I turned to the Dance of Angels, and I sensed that it involves spreading the energy bestowed upon us by our Shifu, blessing everyone with health, peace, and happiness. It is about sharing the selfless love that Shifu has given us with others. Although I was only 10 years old, I learned a lot about TJM, such as the importance of distinguishing between true and false, good and bad, right and wrong. I remember once I went to the NTB to protest, and while crossing the street, I followed my sister and pointed at the presidential palace, yelling at NTB, black is black, white is white. I hope that this year's presidential candidates will be able to distinguish between the true and the false, the good and the bad, and the right and the wrong, returning the land of Miaoli to TJM, as well as restoring fairness and justice to TJM. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Rapunzel. I'm really impressed, and from the smiles on everyone's faces, I'm sure everyone was impressed. You are so young, you made such a lovely presentation, and what you did and what you all do is the demonstration that everyone has a voice and space in Tai Ji Men, and every time it's nice seeing younger, older, and the elderly people also working all together for the good. And maybe next time we will see you playing the drums. Thank you again, Rapunzel. Now we have Eugene Chang, junior high school student, and Adiz with his testimony. Please, Eugene.
Thank you. And hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Eugene, a 14-year-old child protected by the Convention on the Rights of the Child. Today, February 20, marks World Social Justice Day proclaimed by the United Nations. When discussing social justice, I'd like to share my personal experience and thoughts, and particularly in connection with the rights to health, survival, education, play, and social participation and opinions outlined in the Convention on the Rights of the Child. Today, I want to emphasize that our government has violated both social justice and the Convention on the Rights of the Child. Unscrupulous officials unlawfully seize civilian property and impose illegal taxes, with some of the funds becoming bonuses for these officials. What's even more disheartening is that these illegal taxes have shattered numerous families, stripping children of their right. In contrast, officials receiving these bonuses have been steadily advancing their careers and amassing wealth. Tai Ji Men has endured the persecution over 28 years, surpassing my own age. The root of this persecution can be traced back to prosecutor Hou Guanren, who opposed the fair handling of the case simply based on the unsustained report. He detained the brothers and sisters practicing in Tai Ji Men along with our Shifu and his wife, subjecting them to 4 months of imprisonment in the detention center and personally orchestrating the Tai Ji Men case by fabricating false evidence and false witness. Even after the Supreme Court accused them of taxes, the National Taxation Bureau not only failed to return the property seized from Tai Ji Men, but also continued to issue illegal tax forms. Ultimately, in collaboration with the Administrative Exclusive Office, they seized the reserved space where Shifu aimed to guide Dizi worldwide in the practice. In colloquial English, this is an unimaginable act, because in civic education I received at school, the knowledge, especially the legal aspects, was very strict. To become a prosecutor, one undergo extensive professional training, which includes principles of fairness, reliance on scientific evidence, and upholding human rights. However, Prosecutor Hou Guanren actions completely contradict the training of a legal professional. I don't understand why what I learned in school, the common sense values, are so different from the reality of society. We've been reporting this illegal incident to the government for over 28 years, but we still haven't seen a fair and just outcome. I'm a 14-year-old child, and even I know very well that this is illegal. What kind of education do adults want to give us? If I encounter bullying or unreasonable things in school, I believe the teacher will protect me. Likewise, I believe that when the kind of people are bullied, the government should protect the people. Yet, unexpectedly, what the government teaches us is for us to compromise with the bully. In the Convention on the Rights of the Child, as mentioned earlier, there is a right called the right to play. I recall several holidays from my childhood when I accompanied my mother to distribute leaflets aimed to increase awareness about legal and tax rights. At the time, I was hesitant to converse with strangers, but in my pursuit of doing what I was right, I summoned the courage to make the first step. I even managed to discuss French tax matters to foreigners using the leaflets. Taking the entailed step to engage with the strangers brought a sense of relief, and it made me realize that, despite my yells, I could contribute to significant causes. While distributing leaflets and participating in street campaigns may have outcopied numerous holidays, eliminating my playtime, I believe this process has contributed significantly to my personal growth. I have learned our words must mirror our conduct from our shifu. Indeed, it's absurd for me. I don't quite understand its true meaning. My shifu didn't say that everyone has a good. My shifu did say everyone has a good heart and be a prosecutor. At first, I thought it was going to be a big thing. It seems too far away from a junior high school student. But later, I thought that doing the right thing should have nothing to do with age. I know if what I have done had contributed to society, but who says that I must expect any contribution and feedback for doing good? Today, I'm willing to discuss the matter with everyone. This false case has been going for over 28 years. It seems like something adults should be able to understand. But determining right or wrong shouldn't solely rely on adults. I'm a kid, but I can still tell if things are good or not. From my point of view, it feels like this is hard to tell what's right or wrong, but this idea of white fair make me feel uneasy. Speaking of white terror, my mother once took me to visit the Human Rights Museum. The name suggests a place where you can explore, view photos, historic relics, and speak in the hushed tones. In essence, it's a museum where visitors are exhibited and mention a quiet atmosphere. Mom explained that the stories depicted in the museums, photos, and the details about the prison inside are significant. Shh, keep it quiet. But similar to what I've experienced, Mom mentioned that during the era of the White Terror, individuals could only safeguard themselves and their families by avoiding looking, listening, speaking, and discussing. It's a tragic tale for Taiwanese history. I reflected on the idea of history teachers teaches us that museums aim to ensure the future generations remember both of the strengths and lessons of their respective countries. However, I can't help but feel that, despite the passage of many years, negative events persist. It seems like people's hearts may have improved, but governments may better care for their citizens due to the extent of museums. Yet, when we observe current events, such as Tai Ji Men case, it appears to be a structural social phenomenon. Nonetheless, I remain convinced that the creation of monuments or museums cannot entirely prevent the resurgence of history. But I appreciate the efforts of those who establish museums to defend their homes through the memories of history. The unarmed heroes in those stories, with their breath, heartbeats, and the emotions, and transformed into shields through compassion. The historical narrative is alive and is always being a part of ourselves. Therefore, I believe that what I do right now is contributing to a significant history. I hope more people will join the tax reform movement and stand firm in doing what is just. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Eugene. Very interesting perspective. Keep doing what you're doing and involve more people in what you are doing. Thank you very much. We can now give the floor to the next DEs. Again, the next speaker is Ray. Ray Su is a student at university. Is a little bit older than others, but still very young. And so we have next testimony. Please, Ray.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ray, and I am a university student in the 4th grade. Today is Social Justice Day, and I'm delighted to participate in this forum. The topic I'd like to discuss is the courage and bravery needed to uphold social justice. I am a Tai Ji Men DC, and since my childhood, I have enjoyed accompanying my parents and brothers and sisters in the Tai Ji Men. It's not just because there's joy in being here, but more importantly, because there is justice. With a history of over 6,000 years, Tai Ji Men maintains its justice through rules and regulations. Therefore, I realized that to maintain the harmony of a country, justice is crucial. Without justice, there can be no harmony. For instance, a recent terrifying social incident occurred in Taiwan. The discipline officer of a junior high school class stepped forward to maintain class order. But tragically, he was stabbed 10 times, each wound fatal. The perpetrator, due to inadequate protection from child and youth-related laws, faced no consequences. This not only led to a lack of acknowledgement of wrongdoing, but also a display of arrogance, much like those involved in the 1219 Tai Ji Men human rights persecution case. They not only went unpunished but also received promotions, showing no remorse, even in a situation where the judiciary cleared the names of the Tai Ji Men deceased. They continue to be portrayed negatively in the media, continuing to use illegal tax bills to persecute us. Faced with such societal injustice, where prosecutors violate the law and tarnish reputations through the media, tens of thousands of families endure immense pressure and harm. Moreover, our academics constantly face the threat of closure through auctions. In the pursuit of justice, we choose to bravely speak out. Therefore, during weekends and free time, DCs mobilize on motorcycles, displaying small flags that read, "Empower Taiwan, upholding conscience, transforming through honest tax reform." We accompany this with broadcasting messages and songs to alert the tax authorities and remind the public. Our goal is to emphasize the importance of tax reform and advocate for change. When riding in the motorcycle convoy, I noticed many eyes watching us closely. As I rode, the fear of potential police interference appeared. Initially, these stares and possible challenges made me frightened. However, when I thought about how my Shifu never shrank back in the face of injustice within our own country, but instead led us to spread love, peace, and a culture of conscience worldwide, I found inspiration. This fearless spirit is a vital aspect of the Tai Ji Men's Qigong martial arts culture. Therefore, not only do I bravely stand up for Tai Ji Men against governmental persecution, but this year, I also encountered a situation that required courage to assert justice for myself. The situation was like this. During my first year of university, the school organized a performance event. Several classmates in my class consistently made malicious comments and mocked my poor English pronunciation, making the issue quite severe and causing me a lot of frustration. Due to the internal pressure, I started feeling unworthy and unhappy. Finally, one day, my conscience told me that I had to bravely reject such defamation. I want to encourage young people to be brave in facing any unfair treatment and seek the right help. Don't be afraid to speak up about difficulties because everyone has the right to know the truth and has the right to stop any violent persecution. If we want a country or society to be harmonious, maintaining justice is crucial. When facing injustice, it's important not only to fearlessly speak out for oneself, but also for the country's laws to provide effective administrative remedies for the people. Therefore, I also urge the government to act in accordance with the law to uphold the country's justice. Just like a teacher helps students solve problems, the government should assist the people in addressing issues and safeguarding human rights. The protection of children's and adolescents' human rights is a delicate balance. Too much or too little is not ideal. Overprotection can lead to indulgence, allowing children to engage in wrongdoing or not learn how to navigate social interactions. This can be tragedy for their entire lives. In Tai Ji Men, our Shifu often teaches us the philosophy of yin and yang. Distinguish right from wrong and persist in doing the right things. It's like how Tai Ji Men faces the government's unlawful and excessive taxation pay every penny that is rightfully owed, and known for taxes that are unjust. Because without justice in law and taxation, it can lead to the suffering of the people, even sparking revolutions and wars, causing not only human suffering but also ecological disasters. In history, there was a figure named Muhammad who had a slogan, "Prefer to risk 1,000 lives than pay a single coin." He bravely rose in rebellion against the government's injustice and oppression, witnessing the authorities imposing oppressive taxes on the people, leading to hardship, families in distress, and even the sale of children. He was appalled by the stark contrast between the suffering of the people and the lavish style of government officials. Determined to rally the people for reform and eliminate government corruption, he exposed the greedy and cruel actions of the wealthy and bureaucrats oppressing the people. He courageously resisted the government, aiming to establish a society that is equal and just. from this historical event, we can observe the current government issuing unlawful and chaotic tax assessments, unlawfully over-collecting taxes totaling 2 trillion new Taiwan dollars over the past decade. This has led to a breakdown in fiscal discipline, with the whereabouts of the over-collected funds remaining unclear. I believe that such government practices seriously undermine human rights and the rule of law in Taiwan. I appeal to the government to adhere to lawful administration and legitimate taxation. I'm truly grateful for my Shifu teaching me to discern right from wrong and encouraging me to bravely speak up for justice. Following the footsteps of global human rights advocates, I am committed to working together for a future of lasting peace. I want to encourage everyone to embrace courage and in the face of unfair treatment and oppression, stand up and speak out. By doing so, we can make the wrongdoers aware of their mistakes and prompt timely corrections, fostering a life of tranquility and security for everyone in a safe and harmonious society. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Ray. That's correct. Keep fighting, keep speaking out for the good, and involve others and speak out for those who cannot speak out because they cannot or they are not allowed to. Thank you very much. We now have a final testimony with Miss Athena Lee, who is a fresh graduate of Medical University and these of Tai Ji Men. Please, Athena, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alex. Hello, dear host and all speakers. My name is Athena Lee, and I graduated from Medical University. On this World Day of Social Justice, I would like to share today is upholding social justice is not about how many bad people are defeated, but rather how many people are guided to act in good conscience and saved. I wonder if you, like me, have ever wished to be a hero who upholds justice and peace. When I was younger, I enjoyed fighting for justice. When I witnessed like my classmates or friends being bullied, I always spoke out for them. But I was so too impulsive and hasty, and I took a wrong approach. For example, punching someone, causing them to cry, and then being disliked and made me ponder what I had done wrong. Over the time, this dream has been permanently shelved in the corner of my heart. However, I was lucky to grow up learning the wisdom of yin and yang from my Shifu, Dr. Hong Daozi, who taught me that peace requires love and love requires balance. As a result, I realized that a true hero is defined not by the number of bad guys he beats, but by the number of good guys he inspires to unite for good and the numbers of bad guys he saved to change their ways. When Tai Ji Men was bullied by public authorities, tortured and taxed to death, and nearly extinguished, I observed that there is no hatred in my Shifu's heart, but instead, he led his Dizi with love, patience, and harmony, and a love for the homeland and the whole world. On the other hand, he invited many experts and scholars of law, tax, and human rights from both home and abroad to conduct in-depth case studies on the Tai Ji Men case, so as to to determine the problems with the National Taxation Bureau and clarify the legal issues. The offenders should face punished. What difficulties are particular to Taiwan? Which problem have all countries encountered since ancient times, hoping to find a way for Taiwan and international communities to save themselves from the persecutions of conscientious belief groups, to make the offending officials realize their mistakes, and to assist a country in finding a good way to reform and save Taiwan from being controlled by the invisible hand of the law and taxes. Through these seminars and webinars or forums, many experts and scholars have discovered that the Tai Ji Men case is a demon-spotting mirror of Taiwan's legal and tax system, revealing numerous previously unknown facts regarding human rights, persecutions, and the legacy of dictatorship. As a result, numerous experts and intellectuals have actively supported to the attempts of Tax and Legal Reform League to unite Taiwanese citizens to promote legal and tax reform through various forms of protest, signatures on the Tax Reform Declaration, and on-street demonstrations. Nonetheless, Taiwan witnessed the darkest day in human rights history on August 21st, 2020, when the scheduled land for Tai Ji Men's practice site in Miaoli was illegally auctioned off by the NTB, the National Taxation Bureau, in collaboration with the Administrative Enforcement Agency, and was directly declared to be subject to NTB and reverted to state ownership. This piece of land is very important to all Tai Ji Men Dizi. It is a sacred mountain that our Shifu, Dr. Hong Daozi, spent many years of hard work to find, and it is irreplaceable. And all the houses and places for Tai Ji Men Shifu and Dizi to propagate Tao teachings and practice, which is equivalent to churches, places, and sites of worship. And they are not subject to seizure and auction under General Comment number 22 on the International Covenants on Civil and Political Rights, the ICCPR. However, the NTB has illegally taken the possession of the land and forcibly removed the Tai Ji Men Shifu's places of worship, seriously infringing on people's property rights, and more seriously, persecuting Tai Ji Men Shifu and Dizi's religious freedom, ideology, and belief, as well as their rights to choose their cultural life. Looking back on the first 2 months of the illegal auction, from the moment I learned that the land would soon be illegally auctioned off, I came to the Administrative Enforcement Agency and the Ministry of Finance every day, regardless of the wind, sun, rain, or heat of 36 degrees Celsius. And I continue to shout and demand that the government officials should stop all of their ridiculous and illegal actions. Even though I wanted to cry every day when I opened my eyes, the suffering of Taiwan's tax disasters victims, as well as the faces of the people who rolled down their car windows to give a thumbs up to cheer us up, which kept me going. The figure of my Shifu, who was obviously the hardest working person, but who never forgot to exhort and guide all of his Dizi on the path of spiritual cultivation and the wisdom of right and wrong, of yin and yang, which my Shifu taught me since I was a little girl. The love of our country and also the whole world, and most importantly, is the insistence on the Shifu-Dizi relationship and freedom of belief and conscious practice. Despite all these challenges and tribulations, and after leading people along the path of legal and tax reform, our dear Shifu is working tirelessly to raise awareness of Tai Ji Men, a living cultural heritage that may help make the earth sustainable and the world peaceful. To date, we have traveled 103 countries, over 300 cities, and involved more than 200,000 people in over 3,000 domestic and international cultural performances, spreading the culture of conscience, love, and peace around the world. In my opinion, this is the concrete manifestation of to handle state matter well. Is similar to highly experienced physicians who avoid disease when people are healthy, which is based on yin-yang harmony. Finally, I would like to thank my Shifu for helping me to rediscover my childhood dream of contributing to world peace. On the eve of my graduation from the end of May and the beginning of July 2022, I have the honor to travel with the Tai Ji Men Cultural Goodwill Group to Sweden to participate in the United Nations Stockholm Plus 50 conference on the environment in Stockholm, and to Turkey for the 25th Europe-Asia Economic and Trade Summit, and to Washington, D.C. for the second International Religious Freedom Summit, and also in November, as well as to Lucknow, India, for the Conference of Chief Justice. In July 2023, we attended the World Mayors Conference in New Orleans and the World Conference on Religious Freedom of Faith in Chicago. And in October, we went to California, USA, to promote love, peace, and conscience. Through these activities and personal experiences, I have learned the values of the world's yearning for peace. I've also learned to connect and collaborate with Tai Ji Men brothers and sisters to multiply my influence, and to learn from Shifu and Shimu's compassion, bravery, and true wisdom. This is also a source of inspiration and motivation for me to uphold social justice. I believe that as long as we continue to congregate the energy of goodness, when all people may follow their conscience and everyone acts accordingly, there will be no persecution, and the cycle of goodness will be developed. When more people come together, and the power of good will eventually triumph over darkness, and the world will be secure and happy, which I believe is a true social justice in my mind. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Athena. Congratulations for all your activities, all the activities you've been involved with, and all the best with your future prosecution after your studies. And with your testimony, we conclude the second part, and I give the floor back to Willie so he can introduce the conclusive part of the webinar. And thank you very much, everyone, for being here today.
Thank you, Alexandra, for chairing this important session. And it's always a pleasure to feel the wind of fresh air coming from the young Dizzy. So the conclusions will be from Massimo in Trovigny, who is the founder of the Center for the Studies on New Religions, and also the editor-in-chief of Bitter Winter magazine. The floor is yours for the conclusions, Massimo.
Let me see if I'm muted. Probably I'm not.
Okay, it's okay.
So I was very impressed by seeing so many very young Dizi in the program of this webinar. And so I decided, in conclusion, to share something about my own young years and how I decided to devote a part of my life to the study of minority religions and to religious liberty. My first answer to this question is that I was always interested in religions other than my own, probably because of novels on India and China I read as a child. And at age 9, I used part of the weekly money my parents gave to me to spend as I wanted, which is a typical Italian practice, to buy the installments of a publication called The Great Religions. That was also typical of the 60s. You can buy encyclopedia or classical books and you spend a few cents to buy an installment and then you can buy a binder and you will have a nice volume. And The Great Religions, which was published by the French publisher Larousse, but in Italian, made 6 volumes. And they are still in CESNUR's research library as the first books on religion I ever purchased. But the second reason has to do with converting the study of religions into one of my professions. I also have a second one as an attorney. And one of my main interests in college was United States and what kind of theory or philosophy supported its politics. While they were valuable studies on the conservative thinkers who influenced the Republicans, there was almost nothing on the kind of philosophy influential on Democrats. As a college student, I traveled repeatedly to the United States and I read the daily American publications. And finally, I understood the importance of a philosopher called John Rawls, R-A-W-L-S, for the worldview of those American politicians who were not conservative and not Republican. I say this because this is now obvious. There are hundreds of publications on how John Rawls shaped the idea of American Democrats. But at that time, that was 79, my dissertation won awards and later other awards when it was published as a book, because it was the first discussion of John Rawls in a language other than English. Now, Rawls was certainly not particularly interested in religion. His interest was social justice. And he formulated 2 principles. First, that a just society should guarantee the basic liberties to everybody, including freedom of conscience. And second, that social and economic inequalities are justified only if they work to the greatest benefit of the least advantaged members of society. For Rawls, the first principle prevailed over the second. It was not admissible to deny the basic liberties to promote social justice. The second principle embodied both his criticism of unregulated capitalism and Marxism. Against Marxism, he would say that economic inequalities are natural and unavoidable. But against unregulated capitalism, he said that inequalities are not against social justice and are permissible only if they are part of a system where they are made to work to also benefit those at the lower level of the social scale. And actually, the poor may and do benefit from the presence of the rich, who support social welfare with their taxes, create workplaces, and may spend their money to create institutions, including educational and cultural, that benefit everybody. The rich, however, will not do so spontaneously only. Rawls believed they may need some compulsion by the state. And this is why Rawls was, after all, a philosopher of the left, although calling him a socialist may be an exaggeration. But what about religion? If at age 24, I included something original in my approach to Rawls, it was because I noticed what was hidden in plain sight, yet denied by some American followers of the philosopher who only quoted his comment that social justice should be formulated in a secular way. The question was why we should pursue social justice in the first place. The answer was included in Rawls' senior thesis at Princeton University, which remained unpublished until recently, but was available at Princeton Library, which I duly visited. I discovered that Rawls was once a devout Christian who had considered becoming a pastor, but had abandoned Christianity because he could not reconcile the idea of a just and caring God with the horrors of World War II and the Holocaust. Yet, with all his doubts about God, his thesis was on religious faith and the notion of social sins. He acknowledged that we believe that social justice is mandatory because we are the heirs of centuries of moral philosophy rooted in Christian theology. And while he did not want any religion to inspire politics, a main reason Rawls did not accept Marxism was the Marxist denial of religious liberty. Rawls' idea that his first principle should prevail over the second one included the firm affirmation that freedom of religion cannot be sacrificed for the sake of social justice. I was not myself a follower of Rawls, and my own political and philosophical ideas were closer to the American conservatives he opposed. Yet, I found it very interesting that even in the Democrat and liberal camp, the most elegant theorist, i.e. Rawls, acknowledged the religious roots of the very idea of social justice and agreed that the American experiment in all its possible versions should affirm freedom of religion as fundamental. My next question was, what made the religion more openly acknowledged and influential in the politics of the US with respect to other Western countries. This led me to study the influence on American politics of two minority religions, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, nicknamed the Mormons, and the Unification Church founded by Korean preacher Sun Myung Moon. I realized that to understand their politics, I needed to understand their theology. My next two books, including a broader approach to both the Latter-day Saints and the Unification movement, which started me into the business of reconstructing the history and ideas of religions not very much studied in Europe. When decades later, many decades later actually, I discovered the Tai Ji Men and the Tai Ji Men case in Taiwan, I realized it had very much to do with these questions I studied as a young scholar. Tai Ji Men's very existence offers to Taiwan a way of affirming its modern and democratic values by rooting them in an ancient Chinese spirituality and one that affirms the primacy of conscience. Those who started the persecution of Tai Ji Men did it on the basis of a misguided ideology that will crush freedom of religion or belief in the name of a political project. Rawls would have told them that they had forgotten that the first principle of justice, protected basic human rights, including freedom of belief, should always prevail over the second, which allows us to pursue our favorite political and social project. But of course, this is just a scheme. Social justice without human rights is always ideological and false. And in Taiwan, there will be no justice of any kind, social or otherwise, without a solution of the Tai Ji Men case. And with this, I conclude this seminar and leave you with a nice video, which I understand is about the Chinese or Lunar New Year, the year of the dragon. I suggest to start the video because if I sing myself, it will not be the same.